can you trust OTEs in remote high ticket sales? We're going to talk all about why they get inflated, what an OTE is, questions you should be asking, red flags to look out for. And then obviously the flip side of that would be green flags that showcase that an OTE on a job post probably is a little bit more trustable. That way, after you watch this video, you will not be fooled by job posts or by offers that are probably showcasing OTEs that are not real. So first and foremost, like I said, what is an OTE? Put simply, it stands for on track earnings. And what that's supposed to mean is what is the average earning potential for this sales role. If I come into this sales role as a sales rep and I perform at the average, if you've got, 10 sales reps on the team, what is the average quota? What is the average commission that is being earned by the reps on that team? That's what the OTE is supposed to mean. But the ones that actually get posted can be misleading, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose. And we're going to go through a few reasons why, with the first one being companies just want really good talent when they're hiring. So one big reason why OTEs get inflated can be because either that business owner is being purposefully malicious, trying to attract, I don't want to say malicious. It's usually can come from a sense of optimism from the business owner that posts an OTE based on potential that they see in their offer, based on specific averages or numbers in the industry. You might see that more on the newer business side than one that's a little bit more established. But typically, when a company that's a little bit more established, maybe they have a bunch of reps on the team, the OTE that they're posting is probably based on their top performers instead of the average on the team. A lot of sales teams you'll see, even on some of the best sales teams, you'll have a few reps making 20K, 30K a month, with some other reps on the team earning 10, 15, and maybe some other reps earning 8, 9, and 10 that, the ones a little bit lower than that might be getting let go and replaced with other reps that can keep up with the rest of the team. But as long as those reps are profitable, they're going to stay on the team, even if they're not performing as well as the top performer. If they're earning the company money, the company doesn't have too much of a reason to let them go, outside of companies that are really looking for only keeping on elite talent and constantly replacing their bottom team. I do know some companies replace their bottom reps like every 90 days to only keep the top in the game. But again, most companies, if the rep is profitable, they're going to keep them around regardless of whether they're up there with the top performer or in the ballpark or not. So instead of when they're trying to go out and hire, because they want to duplicate that top performer, right? If you've got guys on the team that are, crushing 20, crushing 30K months in terms of revenue generated and the commissions they're earning, they want more of those people, not necessarily more of the average. So in order to attract people that are capable or have generated that type of revenue on offers before or aspire to generate that type of revenue, they will post that as OTE or potential OTE. Even though it's not necessarily on track earnings, it is a potential earnings. They'll still post it and label it OTE because sales reps, top reps, a lot of times, even when I've been recruiting for their offers or just a sales manager, when I'm hiring for teams that I used to run, top reps that are looking for an offer where they can earn 15, 20K a month, even if it's possible for them to step in and with their skill set, earn that revenue. If you're not telling them, hey, this is the on-track earnings, they'll usually just pass over that job post or just say no in the interview. And business owners that either know this or have experienced it when they're interviewing candidates will probably say, you know what, I'm just going to start advertising it as this OTE so that we can bring on these top reps. Another reason why it can get inflated, because that's with some of the more established offers that, maybe they have 10 reps, 5 reps or more. They've been around for a little amount of time. So, that thing happens with them. They're trying to keep top talent on the team. They're trying to bring in top talent. When it comes to the smaller companies, usually you'll have a kind of CEO closer part-time doing both, meaning you have this solopreneur who built this offer. They're good marketers. They're good at delivering their service. They're closing all the deals themselves. They're kind of a jack of all trades in their company. And what they do as they scale, they start to see that the biggest bottleneck is their ability to continue to take calls and close more deals and onboard more people into their organization. So obviously this is a time where it's a good idea to go and hire a sales rep. What a lot of these, I guess, CEO closers do, what a lot of these founders do is they say, okay, I'm running this company. I'm doing everything. I only have the time to close deals about half the day because I have to do marketing, I have to do content, I have to do delivery, I have to do backend, I have to do all these things. So I really only have the bandwidth to take 3 or 4 calls a day. Now, with these 3 or 4 calls a day, I'm generating 50K a month. I'm generating 60, I'm generating 100K a month, taking these calls. And if I was a closer in my own business earning 10% commission, I would be earning, anywhere from 5 to 10K a month in commissions. So therefore, if I step out of this role and hire someone and put them in that role, I'm doing it part-time, half the time. They should be able to do it full-time. That's what I'm hiring them for. Therefore, they should be earning double that, right? So if me doing this half the time, I'm able to close 60 to 100K a month in cash collected, a full-time closer should be able to do 150 to 200K a month full-time, right? And then they take those numbers, they take that idea of just 2x time, 2x results, and then they post that as an OTE and say 15 to 20K a month OTE for this offer, when in reality, there's so many other factors. Like, one, generally you close at a higher percentage just off the fact that you're the founder, you're the face on the marketing, you're the face. If you get your calls through content, YouTube, Reels, whatever, you're the face, you're the, quote unquote celebrity. People are just more likely to trust and buy from you. You have that founder bias. I've seen founders that do a lot of things wrong on sales calls, but still close at 50% just based off their conviction for what they're selling because they built the thing, just based off of them being an industry expert in what they're selling. Because again, especially if it's a coaching offer, they're the one coaching. So they bring a lot of nuance and value to the conversation as a whole that a lot of sales reps might not be able to bring. And then there's just a sense of trust that every step of the funnel that lead went through probably had that person's face or had communication with that person because they're doing everything. Therefore, by the time they're on the sales call, they've already either watched that person's content or kind of like, I'm glad I'm finally getting to speak to you, finally getting to meet you. And therefore deals just close at a higher rate. Typically that first sales rep coming in is not going to outperform the business owner. So just assuming that it's going to be a 2x, although maybe it sounds logical, but assuming that it's going to be a 2x, that's usually not the case. There's usually a dip in close rate for that first or second closer on the team, or just a dip in close rate when you're comparing closes from, regardless of the team size, closes from a sales rep to the founder or CEO, especially because there's that perception of from the prospect when they get on a call, they know they're speaking to someone whose sole job is to sell, right? They know that they're speaking to a sales person, so they have their guard up a little bit more versus when they're speaking to the founder. They're like, well, yes, although this is a sales conversation, your sole focus is is your company. You're the CEO, you're the founder. You're not necessarily a salesperson. And although, it's not a huge difference, you'd think, but prospects just treat it differently when they're on calls. So that's another reason why with newer, smaller companies, especially, OTEs can get inflated, because a lot of it is, hey, let's just double my output and go from there. Even when they're saying, hey, it's a 6K a month OTE, you've got a founder who's closing, 30K a month and they want to bring on their first sales rep. I'd say that's too early, but a lot of them, they say, hey, like a lot of founders, they want to get rid of sales as quickly as possible so they can focus on delivery and backend stuff and really scale that side of the business. So then they say, hey, that's when you've got like a company that's doing 30K a month posting a 5 to 6K a month OTE with 10% commission. It doesn't really make sense, but in their mind, it makes perfect sense because they're like, well, you're going to have your full time and attention on this where I can't. So therefore you should be able to get us to that 60K plus a month mark to where you are actually earning that amount. So again, a lot of it is potential, which makes it inflate, right? So To avoid this, let's talk about some questions that you want to be asking on these interviews and things you can look at in job posts. First and foremost, the questions you want to straight up ask: is the OTE, these things that are posted in the job post, is it about the top performer? Is it about the average performer? Is it about the bottom performer, which is usually never? So you can just straight up say, instead of asking about OTE, don't even use that language. Just say, hey, what is the top performer producing? And what is the average performer producing? And what is the difference between their inputs? I always tell people there's two sides to the story that you want to understand when accepting an offer. You don't just want to understand the earning potential. You want to understand the work that goes behind the earning potential, because you might not be willing to do it to earn that amount. I have worked with closers who were making great money, making 30, 40K a month, but they were taking 12 calls a day, 12-hour-long calls a day, which means working 12, 13-hour days, 14-hour days when you factor in everything else to earn that 30K a month, which, if that's something you want to do, great, might not be something everyone else wants to do. Maybe, and I've had roles where guys were top performers on teams earning 30K a month, doing 12-hour days, while the rest of the team did 8-hour days and earned 15K a month, right? But if that offer is presented as a 30K a month offer because of that top performer, you might come in thinking that you're going to be working a normal shift, normal times, 40 hours, 50, 60-hour weeks, normal times, and earn that same amount when that's not the case. So you want to understand not only what the earnings are, but what work went into those earnings. And that's not saying you got to put in 12-hour days to earn 30K a month. I've seen guys doing 8-hour days earning 30K a month, with some of the biggest commissions I've seen being 70 to 100K months off normal hours, or even a few hours a day, because the offers they were selling were 100K, 150K offers. So they only had to sell, 5, 10, 20 of them a month to earn that type of commission. But that's besides the point. The point is, understand both sides of the equation and see if it's something you're willing to do. Okay, the average performer, if I came in and performed at the average, which my goal is to outperform the average, but if I came in and did more inputs than the average, one, could I do that? Two, would I be happy with the compensation that came with that? That's how you can say, okay, all right, this makes sense. Two, get the numbers, right? A lot of business owners, if they're, and this is, there's two sides to this. They could either be malicious about it because they're just trying to, I guess, get performers in, or they just don't track these things, which means they're just not at the level of business that maybe you want to even be on the team. But you want to get the numbers and do the math, because typically the numbers will be more readily available and tell a much truer story than you'd think, right? So if a business owner is trying to say this is the OTE, instead of saying what's the top performer earning or what's the average performer earning, you could also just ask, what's the company generating? How many reps are on the team? What's the average close rate? What's the show rate? If you want to get really detailed, what's the upfront cash collection percentage? You can also ask, what's the collection rate on the back end? Again, you don't have to ask all these numbers, but when you get these numbers on the interview, you can start to do the math and see if there's a misalignment from what they're telling you from what the numbers say. If a business owner is saying the OTE is 10K a month, but they've got 3 sales reps or 4 sales reps, and the company as a whole is doing 200K a month and the commission is 10%, you can see how there's a misalignment in those numbers, because in order to have, let's say, 3 sales reps at 10% commission and the OTE be 10K a month, they would have to at very least be doing 300K a month, because each closer would have to be bringing in 100K cash collected every month to earn 10K a month. So if you can gather the numbers, ask them the numbers, you can say, okay, there's something off here when you sit down, take notes on it in the interview, and then take a look at it and see if it makes sense what they're telling you, right? And obviously it's a huge red flag if they just don't know the numbers, right? If they don't have the numbers readily available, then there's probably some things going on there. You might not want to be a part of that team. Businesses, business owners, interviewers that are, sales managers, whoever's interviewing you, they should know their numbers. There's also ramp up time. the OTE, even if it's 100% legitimate, everyone on the team is earning somewhere in that ballpark. Don't classify, and this is more for your own, financial planning. Don't think that you're going to hit that in the first 30 days. And this has nothing to do with your skill set. Usually, a lot of times companies just have a ramp up time before they even give you a full calendar. That might be 2 weeks. That might be 3 weeks. That might be a whole month before you're getting a full calendar. Mind you, a lot of OTEs, even if they're completely honest, if you actually looked at everyone on the team, and everyone on the team on average was earning that amount, truthful, that number is probably a mix of upfront cash collected, a mix of payment plan payouts. So if they closed someone on a 3-pay or a 4-pay or a 2-pay, some of their commission is from someone that's on their third installment. And it's probably also from follow-up, right? So that doesn't necessarily indicate what the 30-day cash collected is within that OTE. So even if it's true, like I said, some of that commission is split between things that just take a few months to get to, right? You might come in and in your first month, you'll close some up front, pay in full. You'll close some payment plans, and then you'll have some people in your pipeline that are going to close either the month after or 2 months from now or 3 months from now that you're going to be nurturing. So what is the OTE going to be for you in month one? Even if it's true, it's probably not going to be that OTE number. So there is a ramp up time that you want to understand, not only with your close rate, but then also when are they going to even let you have a full calendar? Is it going to be a week of training before you start taking calls? When you do start taking calls, are they going to only give you 2 or 3 calls here and there until you've proven yourself, closed a couple deals? Are the calls they give you going to be the calls that most of the closers normally take? Or are they going to be maybe less qualified calls to kind of see how you perform first? What is their ramp up policy? What is their ramp up time? That's also something you want to understand before you say, okay, the OTE is 10K. I'm going to step into this offer. I'm going to make 10K in the first month, or I'm going to make 10K by my second month, and away we go. That might or might not be the case depending on that company's specific ramp up time. That's something you want to understand. Also, again, when it comes to red flags, no numbers in the job posts, right? So the job post doesn't talk about numbers. Maybe it just says an OTE, but it doesn't say anything about the averages of that team. Doesn't talk about close rates, doesn't talk about show rates, doesn't talk about, anything else other than, hey, this is the OTE for the offer. This is what we sell. Another red flag would be numbers in the job posts, but it's very clearly based on the wording, potential numbers. So you'll see some job posts where they say, what's possible? This is the deal size. This is like average close rate, average show rate, average, like they break it down very, very well. There's a full breakdown showcasing exactly the commissions, but it's very clear that just by some indications of the wording that it's not like, hey, this is what our team does. This is what we do. This is like the potential. This is the average. If you see things like industry standard is 20% close rate, if you see things like the average show rate in the industry is, if you see things that are showcased, like kind of disconnecting what they do from what the industry on average sees, then you know that's probably a bit of a red flag because it's potential. It's potential. And you don't want to base the OTE off of, because what they're doing is they're just taking all the averages of show rate, close rate, all this stuff. One, they're only basing it on PIFs, like every close is a PIF. And two, the OTE looks good because everything is from their deal size, right? So I can say, oh, my deal size is 20K and then give you all the show rate, close rate, industry averages and come out with a great OTE. I can give you my deal size is 1K and then come out with not so great OTE, and give you my deal size is 5K and come out with a mid-range decent OTE, right? The OTE is based on all these industry averages that just stems from nothing but a deal size. That doesn't indicate whether they've actually sold at that order value. That doesn't indicate whether they have good systems and processes behind that order value. So that's why it can, even though they have a full breakdown, it can still be a red flag if it's clearly only potential. And then a third red flag, hugely, like I said before, is if you get to the interview and you start asking some questions about numbers and they can't tell you, they don't know. And if they're straight up telling you that it's all potential, right? If they're telling you it's all potential, then believe them, right? And understand that it's not guaranteed, right? You want to make sure that you do more research into the numbers of what's going on to see what's actually real. On the flip side, the green flags are all the opposites. They have very clear numbers based off of history, not based off of potential. They have a clear onboarding and ramp up time, and they say, hey, in your first 30 days, this is what I've seen job posts like this. Hey, first 30 day to 60 day OTE is this. Once fully ramped into position, this is what the OTE looks like, because they understand pipeline building. They understand payment plan splits and payouts. They understand these things, and they tell you, hey, maybe it's a 3 to 5K in your first 30 to 60 days, and then it turns into a 8 to 10K after ramp up. Maybe it's a 6 to 7K in your first 30, then after ramping up, it turns into 10, 15, 20K offer over time as you build your pipeline. These are all green flags. If everything they're talking about is clearly based on history, that's what you want to look for in the job post. That's what you want to see and hear about in the interviews. So can you believe OTEs? I would take them with a grain of salt. I would look at OTEs, take into account all of these factors, and almost disregard it in a sense where what you really want to look at is, does this company have a history of producing good results for their clients? Has this company been around for a while? Does this company have good marketing, good systems? Does this company have a clear pathway from bringing, on the system side, prospects from cold to sold? Do they have a clear process of getting prospects results? Do they have long-standing sales reps on the team? All of these things matter more. And once they're in place, once you see that the factors are yes, 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 check mark, check mark, check mark, then you can say, okay, what are they telling me about OTE? What are they telling me about averages? This is a little bit more believable now that I see that these things are in place. Hopefully that helps. I'll see you guys in the next video.